When one speaks about carbon emissions, one often attributes it to industries, for example, the coal industry or effluents from various other sources. But did you know that 3% of the world's carbon emissions are attributed to ICT? And it is a significant amount. Joining us to talk a little bit about that, but also about the India story here in Davos, which is always a topic of conversation. Romal Shetty, CEO of Deloitte South Asia. Thanks very much, Romal, for being with us. We'll get to carbon emissions in a moment. You've been over here now for several years. You've seen the India story develop. India is an outlier in terms of global growth. How do you see that on the India promenade, as it's now called, in Davos?
I mean, it's always a proud moment when you walk around here and you see so much of India. I think both from the private sector, corporate India, as well as from the government and the state government. So I think there is an increased presence. But Vishnu, what is something that is very interesting is when we talk to Indian CEOs and we talk to India Inc., the growth that they're talking is not about, hey, 20% growth, 10% growth. They're actually saying we'll double, we'll triple in 5 years' time, or even grow 5x. They're constantly looking for growth and scaling. And this is the time to sort of scale up to the next level. And we see so many of the corporates that are actually talking about that. Vis-a-vis rest of the world, you don't hear those comments. It's more about sort of really sustaining and sort of doing on a much slower path. So the optimism is fantastic, and Davos, clearly, I think India's presence is tremendous.
Yeah. When we talk about India's services sector and the services export sector, it's at what, $400 billion presently. If that scales up, which it is bound to do, AI, which is very much the buzzword over here in Davos this year, would be a significant percentage of that. How do you see that going?
Yeah. So one, as a services sector, which of course, software is the biggest part of services, but there is accounting, there is professional services, there's a lot of other engineering services and others that are being provided in India with the captives and others. We believe that has a potential to go from 400 billion to a 1 trillion, in the next 6 years. So by 2030, there is a potential to be a 1 trillion services economy. And we estimate that 40% of that will actually come because of generative AI and AI. Right. So I think clearly services is a big, massive sector for us. And we've already overtaken Saudi Arabia from oil exports. But I think this is something that we are very, very bullish about.
Yeah. Enterprise Conscious Code, the initiative that you have over here, no one really sort of associates software with carbon emissions. But how is that actually the case?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things is that, and you mentioned about it, that 3% of all carbon emissions are ICT emissions are coming from ICT sector. We believe with Gen AI and other things, and with millions of codes written virtually every day, that would actually go up to 14%. But to just give an India context, is that if you take some of our popular websites, and if a user traverses all parts of the website, it's equivalent, I'm talking about large websites, it's equivalent to driving 10 kilometers or using petrol every day.
Right.
And this is one user. Right. We have 30 million to 50 million users on some of these websites. So the second part is, because we're looking at digital, this includes not just your web interfaces, but your phones, your TV sets, every medium through which you're actually communicating. And we felt as a firm, I think it's important that we start recognizing this now. Yeah. And then therefore we created this Enterprise Conscious Code initiative, where the idea is that we've built a tool which can run on any website and tell how energy efficient you are or energy inefficient you are. Yes. I mean, the viewers will be interested to know that a blue line actually takes up more energy than a red and a green line as well. So we've gone into that level of detail to understand. The second bit we also found, Vishnu, was that a lot of these web pages and websites are sometimes written on old technologies, legacy architecture, which also makes it very energy inefficient. File sizes, for example, right? A simple video file could be 400 MB, which actually could be compressed to, we built compression techniques to make it to 400 KB. Yeah. So you really are doing this. The second part is really about accessibility. What we also found is that, for example, if you're colorblind, which 4% of the world's population is colorblind, and if you have an astigmatism, which is in India, in the tested population, nearly 30% of the population is astigmatic, you're in some sense not being inclusive. Right? So this initiative was really about three things. People, to be inclusive, the planet, so as to ensure that the way code is written, so the Enterprise Code Initiative also tells that how to write a code, how to govern the code as well, because another interesting data point is 60% of a code, this is, I mean, of course, it's a sample, but 60% of code written is never used. So it's only 40% of the code written. But because you're writing that kind of code, it consumes energy, it consumes time, it consumes space. Right? Similarly with the file sizes. So really about making it more efficient, which is really also from a green perspective. But at the end of it, all of this also contributes to the bottom line. So people, planet and profit, all the three aspects we're covering.
It's fascinating when you're talking about compression technology, and what is proprietary for Deloitte is you are able to cut down file sizes while retaining quality. That's the holy grail, as it were, isn't it? But you've managed to do that.
Yes. And Vishnu, what we've also said is you have to balance between customer experience, because that's very important, and the same time. So not everything needs to be high definition, right? But if you balance it, you realize the amount of energy that saved that can happen. And I think that is a conscious effort. Even, for example, when you make colors, which colorblind people can associate. Again, it has a thing on experience. But as long as you make a conscious effort, even 1% reduction, significant.
A final question, you were talking of the people front, as it were, software with a conscious intent. But another key part of this is the use of metrics. The use of metrics defined by specific tools which help companies achieve a particular goal, in this case towards reducing the amount of their carbon footprint. Could you tell us about these tools, or what exactly?
So what we've built is an AI-fueled code which basically scans the entire website and sort of identifies where are the energy inefficiency points, how is the code written, right, and then comes back and to say here are the recommendations of what needs to be done. So it's not just about saying, hey, you're energy inefficient, but then tells what are the 5, 10, 20 steps that you need to take to get to a particular level. And we believe that if this could be created like an index, and every company sort of says that I want to be in the top quadrant of the lowest energy emissions, I think it'll be a great service from a environment fueled with a lot of AI.
Sure. Final question. Your goal, of course, through all of this is to cut 30% of emissions responsible by software alone. That's the overall trajectory that you're looking at.
Yes. So, as I said, when from the amount of software that has been written today, and it's going to just leapfrog, we believe that the 30% is a good number for us and for all corporations to sort of adopt.
All right, Romil, thank you very much for speaking to us. There you have it. A critical area of the ICT industry which we don't really look at carbon footprints, and the fact that carbon footprints need to come down substantially by looking at the amount of code which is generated and finding smart solutions which helps us in so many ways.